Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is, of course, Gamer1745, and we are playing Hearts of Iron 4's Black Ice. And I want to thank Tim, Strongarm, Niagro, Timothy, Sertoyjet, Garrett, Marcus, Folk, three of those may be still in chat, and, of course, the great Hoffmanator for your support over on Patreon. But everybody else, you know what, you just lick the like button, see how it tastes this time, and, it really helps. If you post a comment, you can just say hi over on, on the videos. Feeds the algorithm, shows engagement. So if you would do that for me, that's all I really ask, is a little bit of engagement. We are trying to cut off Leningrad. I'm going to undo one of you from that attack. I'm going to send you up this way to see if we can drive into there. Reinforcements of the Hungarian type are moving north. Some have fallen back there. Just at the gates of Moscow. At the gates of Moscow. We're not winning the war yet. Okay, these guys here that we need to get. Head north, head north. You head up to there. We take an afternoon off and click the like button on all the videos. We should, well, I don't know if you need to do that, but just when you see one, it does help if you click that like button, everyone. YouTube is, I believe highly that I am suppressed on YouTube. It's been more than a year, though I think I got both of them. I know I got one of the quote-unquote hate speech thing removed, just because I'm talking about, oh, Nazis and whatnot. And whether it's that or my personal political views, which sometimes I do talk about here, if you guys know, I'm absolutely not a Nazi. More of a conservative libertarian type person, which would be diametrically opposed to Nazis. But so I don't know that it's necessarily so much of wanting to suppress that, though I can't be sure. I will say Adolf Hitler and Nazi and whatnot. I know a lot of YouTube content creators really dance around that to try not to get slammed by that. But since I focus enough on all of this, I'm just gonna say we're gonna see if we can take Orel and get that supply point back. That would be a supply point. Yeah. Yeah. Now, when I finally actually did get a person using Twitter from YouTube to actually go in and look at the videos, and once I got a person, because it was denied, my appeal was denied through the YouTube system. But when I got a person to look at it, they agreed that no, there's no hate speech or using symbols, because yes, I will. There obviously are swastikas on some videos and things like that. Does definitely happen. But it's not promoting them at all. So I gotta fight for all of the views I can. And I really, I hope I'm entertaining. I know obviously I entertain a few people here. But I hope I'm generally entertaining. But my real mission is education. To teach people the lessons from World War II and whatnot. Because damn it, people, we're facing a... Well, it's not a total war because no one's throwing nukes around. But there have been... Well, there's not been a lot. I mean, there's been some war crimes committed by the Russians. There's not been a lot of... Well, no, I'm changing my mind. Mariupol was destroyed as a city. So there's been some, pretty heavy fighting war. This isn't just, I don't know, some low-level conflict like there had been in the Donbass for a long time. Just sort of skirmishes going on. There's sort of a general war going on, major war going on. Yeah, in Eastern Europe, but still in Europe. And Hamas has always been at war with Israel, people. Don't anybody think any different. But Israel has declared war on Hamas and is going after that. So, lessons from World War II should be paid attention to. All kinds of lessons from World War II should be paid attention to. Okay, we're going to attack here again to pin the forces that are here in there. While some of these forces are moving north, up there. These we're losing, but we're still pushing. Keeping them pinned while we come in here and hopefully get this place taken. So I hope, I know there's just a small audience here. I realize all of that, but I do believe some of my what I have to say is important. Got the F2. Well, let's come over here. Let's click here. Let's click here. Okay. Okay, Spitzen and smoke discharger. I think it might be Schützen. I don't know the correct pronunciation. Or if there's multiple correct, I'm not sure. But even here. Ammunition, we could do that. That's I don't know if it's on another panel. Okay, and smoke dischargers I think are not here. Be over here. Here we are. Okay, advanced tank armor. There we are. Got that, and we got smoke dischargers. Okay, we've got those things going. slope armor design, advanced tank armor. Let's do this and we will spend that. Let's face it, most playing for fun, we are a few who are playing to learn something and have fun too, of course. Yeah, well, I know I've sort of abandoned it because it takes a lot of time and I don't know how much time I want to just give away to it, but I really think my Third Reich event mod for Hearts of Iron 3's Black Ice was a very good learning tool. It mostly, shall we say, taught history as opposed to lessons from history, but it mostly taught history. And I really think this was explained to me as sort of a roadmap for players. So if they want to get to winter equipment production, they know what they need to do to get there, or whatever it may be. Okay. And I understand that. And that is a very, very legit way of doing this. What I was looking for with Third Reich events, because it obviously doesn't have this, was to put in historical information that would give clues, suggest kind things to you that about history and what you should pick. My belief is, and it says there's 14 people between Twitch and YouTube and 4 watching over on Rumble, so there's not a whole lot of people here. I know that. Many more will end up watching this later. I know that because we've been getting about 700-800 people for a lot of these videos. So I know half of them just watch about 5 minutes of the video or whatever out of the hour, but still a bunch do watch this. So different people learn in different ways, but if you look at modern schools, and I don't mean just in the last 20 years, I mean in the last 80 years, not just the modern indoctrination camps that I believe they've become. But you look at the way people have always done in school. So many people will study for the test, will pass the test, and then apparently, if you quiz them on it 3 months later, 4 months later, they don't retain much of it. Okay? They learn it for the test, they learn it to pass the course, and I'm sure, maybe they're somewhere in their subconscious. I still don't. I don't think any of us really knows how that works. I mean, a lot of information is retained there. Why we don't? Why we aren't able to access it more easily? I don't know. And I know I'm going off on a tangent because I know often older people, which may sort of seem me, but it hasn't yet hit me. Is sometimes that they have hard time remembering what they did last week, but they remember their school days well. Or something like that. I remember it well. Where, after they got out of school, they didn't, but events happening in school and whatnot. Supposedly that's a thing. Again, I'm, not that old, but I might have trouble remembering what I had for breakfast just because I don't really retain that information, but I don't remember the past super well or whatever. So I don't know why, even though, we can only absorb so much information. I understand that, but I don't know why we aren't able to recall it better. But that's sort of a mystery and whatnot. But so and different, like I say, different people learn in different methods. But Whether you watch a documentary or some other audio visual type thing, or you read a book, whether a digital book or paper, paper thing in your hand, that is a very good way to pass on a lot of information. But so many people don't retain the information. And I use my mother as an example here. My mother was a rather smart woman. And she could make her microwave dance, if you will. She knew all the buttons, knew what they did to setting timers, doing all this stuff. And this was way back when, I would show her how to, more than just, press the play and record, early VCRs, but show her how to program the stuff. And she seemed to get it, but she'd never use it because she couldn't remember it well enough later on. And so I had to, from observing that and some other technical things that she could do, and I got other examples in my life, but of people like this, is the VCR wasn't that important to her. And if I was away, this is in the olden days. I know we're talking about olden days here and you don't understand these things. But if I I thought I was going to be home but I'm out, this is like high school or junior high or whatever, and I'm out with friends and whatnot. And it's going to be later and there's something coming on TV that I wanted to watch, every Thursday night or whatever it might have been. And so, and I was sure I was going to be back, so I didn't, program the VCR. And so I would call her and go, hey, can you program something or record something for me at 8 o'clock? And she would rather get a timer, set the timer, and have it go ding, and walk in there and push, play and record, put it to the channel and record it. And so she would do that, and have to pay attention to that and do it at the time as opposed to program the VCR. So I took this as she wasn't too stupid. The VCR wasn't that complicated. And compared to what she could do with the microwave and how not that hard it was to program an old VCR timer thing, it wasn't super easy, but I didn't think it was difficult if you just paid half attention to it. Is she just didn't care enough to retain the information. She just didn't care to learn how to program a VCR. Just was unimportant to her. She could do what she needed to do. So this has made me think, and I know we're off on philosophical things here, that people retain information they find important in their life. So algebra, geometry, and a lot of these other things that we learn in schools that we don't use on a daily basis, we don't retain. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be taught them in schools, because some people will use them. And it's also sort of if you sort of get that information once, it's vaguely there, and it'll be easier later on if you're actually going to need it to sort of figure it out. And so I really came up with Third Reich events, very much partially, and you can look at the original description, and thinking about it and developing it partially just as a fun thing and wanting to mod, as looking at it as an educational tool, is that the player, because they want to play the game, because they're not being forced to learn the thing for a grade, they're not being told they have to do something, but they want to play the game. And to play the game well, to play the game successfully, you needed to read the description of the events, needed to be more complicated than, Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact. What do I have to do? Reassert Eastern claims. Oh, get that. I have to do honest solution. And but really you had to read the sort of kind of things to sort of kind of know what's going on. And it was important to you because you wanted to win the game, because you wanted to play the game. And so that information becomes practically useful to you. It's not just some theoretical usefulness, it is a practical usefulness to you. So you'll have a higher retention. Even I do believe, now I don't know this and don't have studies and didn't do any of that kind of stuff, but I do believe in even years later that you hadn't played Hearts of Iron for however long, You hadn't even played World War II games for however long, but if you start talking about Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact, and they because of or some of because I have a whole big thing, reclaiming Sudeten land. It's a whole event chain. I go, oh yeah, and they'll remember, retain not all the details, not all the facts and figures. Not trying to say like that, but retain a lot of the message for the Sudeten Germans and what's going on it, and be able to come back 10, 20 years later, have a foundation basis that if they just saw it in a documentary, that was an hour long and it was fun to watch and you just sat there and watched it, didn't even like do anything else distracting, you'd retain a bit of it, but you don't retain it, in my opinion, like you do if it's a practical, useful knowledge. And especially if you're not sure what events, what decisions you're needing to make are, it's not clearly, press this button. Why? Press this button to win the game. Oh, you mean if I press this button, I get to win the game? Well, not quite, but if you don't press this button, you'll lose the game for sure. Oh, okay. So just press this button, and then press this button, and then press this button. And you need to do that to win the game. And it's just, you learn the buttons to press, and you hardly pay attention to what is the first Vienna Award. You just do it because you want to get the fate of Czechoslovakia. So you lose a little bit of that needed retention. Now, this whole style of stuff seems to be very popular with players. I don't know if it, because you could put all of these effects, all of them, over here in the decisions, events and decisions. You could put every last one of them over here, and you wouldn't even necessarily have to go, show what you have to do before. You just have to play it a few times and learn, or watch a YouTube video or whatever and learn. But run through this, and you could do this. You don't, and so is it just the immersion? No, I don't think so. I would like to think that the reason these are so popular is because of the immersion factor. And if you made it immersion over here that popped up, stuff that would equal it, I think quite honestly it is sort of laziness of players. But that is where learning and playing the game come in. Now the other thing is that now with the YouTube video situation and these Let's Plays, I've taken sort of that philosophy, and I know we're way off the game, and I know I really appreciate you guys who like to hang around. Maybe I kill my channel as much by doing this as I do other stuff, but is to where we play the game, you're not sure, and I'm not sure how this is going to come out, so that's sort of interesting. You sort of have the fun of watching somebody play the game. And I know I've sort of stopped playing to go through this, and this is bad for flow. I know that, but I think a few people are interested in it. It's not maybe so great, the retention thing, but it's playing the game, and I do try to keep this flowing a bit more than what I'm doing now. But you get some history talks in it. It isn't just the game. It's history, it's immersion, it's that kind of stuff. And not so much the player gets to, when they play the game, learns the history, but how, in my opinion, Ukraine, which, just for your information, everybody, the Ukraine war is still going on. I know probably everyone forgot about it with what's happening with Gaza and all, with the Hamas massacres of Jewish citizens, but it is still going on. Is very much, in my opinion, very much like Spain. I mean, we are playing out the 1930s. If especially you people in Europe, and I know I have a very high rate or viewership percentage in Europe. You got a lot of Americans and some Asians and other people. I sing for people in Asia. I know it's other parts of the world too. But you people in Europe particularly should be really paying attention that we're sort of like in 1937, 1938 in Europe. I'm not saying in 2 years you're going to have World War II, but I'm also not saying you're not going to be having World War II in 2 or 3 years. And I've now come to the conclusion that we might have a world war without throwing nuclear weapons around. And that was always the thing I grew up with. So you might just want to pay attention with what's going on, and when you get to vote for people, you know, is it going to lead to peace if you keep pumping in weapons and money and munitions into Ukraine? Or is it going to lead to World War II? I don't know. I don't have the answer, because maybe you can bleed Russia white, quote unquote, and that will collapse the Putin regime, and that will end the threat of World War II, or World War III in Europe. We still have China to worry about, but that may do it. Or that may make Putin desperate for something else, and Putin may decide to, oh, I don't know, attack the Baltic states, which, since they're actually NATO members, might get NATO involved. And that would then be general, because maybe Putin doesn't believe NATO will actually do anything about it, but he needs to show strength to his Russian people to keep his regime from collapsing, or so he believes, or something. I'm not saying that that's what, so we might see something that triggers World War III, and so we can all tell you what, I have a few Ukrainian friends. I talk to them. I'm not going to dox them here. Not many. There's a couple of people I talk to, but one particularly. I am not going to, but if it's talking about a general World War III, or letting Ukraine fall. I'm going to say let Ukraine fall, because it's probably going to fall anyways if we have general World War III. But that doesn't mean I'm like not supportive of Ukraine. I am supportive of Ukraine. It's just, if we knew what the costs were going to be or something, if I knew that answer, yeah, what would we sacrifice to not have a truly global scale war again? But maybe not supporting Ukraine would give Putin, oh, we crush Ukraine. Okay, next up, Baltic states, and then that would be World War III. So I can talk about what we might learn and what might happen. I don't know what would happen if this or that did or didn't happen. So now, again, in my opinion, Ukraine's already won the war. Now we just got to find a way to stop the fighting. Yeah, I know they haven't gotten Crimea back and whatnot. I know all of that, but they were trying to take out Kiev and move in, and Ukraine's already sort of won the war. So okay. Let me take a look at the chat after my ranting. Well, memory is sustained by practical use of knowledge, yes. If it's just memory, then it will eventually be replaced by new stuff to remember. Yeah, possibly, but and talking to some older people and some other stuff, they do seem to, late in life, get vivid memories of early parts of their youth. So I don't, not necessarily like young childhood memories so much, but more as like teens and 20s seems to be. So I don't know. Getting a timer to record something when you were out was a tough one. Yeah. So do not be too disheartened about viewership at the moment, because notification. Yeah, okay. And I don't know why it said 10 a.m. Maybe I just clicked it wrong in the morning. Yeah, thank you, Frog Eyes. But yeah, and I'm not too terribly disheartened now about the small viewership. I'm just happy you guys want to hang out with me, because I do get some decent views later on. And of course, hello, my friend IKB. I probably just clicked something doing it last night and getting stuff ready. Okay, is this the new? No, it is not. Nazca 41. It is not this is the previous version, the immediate previous version of Black Ice. I just didn't want to yet start over a new playthrough. So we will be doing more playthroughs with the new stuff eventually. What does that exactly mean, timing? But is something. Yes, Ukraine is not the current thing anymore. Focus on Israel now and obey. Exactly. I agree with that sentiment. I will state firmly that um, I totally feel that Russia's invasion of Ukraine is entirely unjustified. I know there was a coup back whenever. I know that there is a Russian speaking minority, however you want to categorize them, in Ukraine. I know both Ukraine and Russia were rather, and probably still are, rather corrupt states. None of them are like, oh, one's a virtuous state and the other is a terrible state. I don't know that. Because a corrupt democracy isn't necessarily any better than a corrupt dictatorship, people, okay? If you're talking at the levels of corruption. So, oh, but they have voting. We really, is that all you're going to hang your hat on? Well, with voting you have a chance for changing government. Yeah, but if everyone's corrupt, it's still not. Yeah. So it's entirely unprovoked. So my sentiments are entirely in Ukraine's favor. I totally support sending some, that we've sent some aid to Ukraine. I just think we need to change our tactics on trying to end the war in Ukraine. Um, doesn't mean I think we should cut off all aid. But I just think it's sort of is one description of a boat is a hole in the water that you pour money into. Now this was you know a pleasure boat. Somebody owning a private boat just for fun, not like a ship or a utility vehicle or a fishing boat. It just a hole in the water you pour money into. And just pouring more weapons and money into Ukraine, in my opinion, isn't going to change significantly anything. Yeah, it keeps the Ukrainians fighting for a while, and I know we're trying to bring in F-16s, but I don't know that they're going to change things like they think it's going to change. And yeah, Nazca, I might take a look next weekend at some of the new systems, but we will see how that's going on. And I am a big super fan of Zionists, and I like Jewish people. I think Jewish people are great, but that's not the only reasons for um, why I'm a Zionist fan. Um, and when I say that, it's not just, oh, do I like Jewish people? No, I'm a huge fan of Zionism. Um, an anti-war author, but who focused on war, named Gwen Dyer. I remember his name. I have his book somewhere, and I watched his video series that accompanied the book. The old like PBS stuff, PBS video series and book. And he is called like On War, sort of like using the uh, Clausewitz title, I believe it's there. But he looked at Israel. This was way back, I think, in the 70s or early 80s. As an example, and everything I've ever looked at Israel and the lessons coming out of the Holocaust, coming out of needed, and the people deciding they needed a state. You know, people may go back and go, "Oh, they did this, and then those people did this, and this. Who was there first?" In the 1930s, and I do look at this a bit, and though I never added the text because that's about the time I stopped actively working on Third Reich events. And I was actually looking at it through a German magazine that was publishing anti-Jewish propaganda about the Jews in Judea at the time, or in Palestine at the time, call it. Back in the 1930s, hey, Holiday Punch. Well, we're talking about all kinds of stuff. here. Yes, rails in the Middle East, rails around here. We could go in and critique the rails because everybody, you can say hi to IKB over on Twitch right now. He is our in-house rail, including military rail and civilian rail expert. He actually works on rails, physically works for a railway company, but he is also very well read and with a pretty decent railway library. And so he has backed me up on a lot of stuff. And we actually have some, if you want to look at some of our, because we did it together, Railway Empire videos in which we play the game together and talk about rails and history and whatever. Great series if you want to have a non-war gaming, the one of I don't yeah non-war gaming series, but where we talk about history and rail and human development and all of that kind of stuff. So very well read guy, and he is sort of the expert. And I'm not nearly the detailed historian of railway that he is, but I am definitely interested in a fan on that. But starting out in modern history, not, we can talk about the Jews, way back when, the Romans, after Christ, right around 40, 60 AD. They do the final real siege of Jerusalem and take it, and finally put the Roman boot deep and hard. I mean, this is in post Jesus, deep and hard into Israel and creating. That's when, after that, this taking of and destruction of Jerusalem at that time, that after that is when really the diaspora of the Jews start. I mean, not that it didn't happen before, it did, but that's the big push, was the Roman occupation. Not looking back then, but if we were talking again, and it starts really in the 30s, the Jews from various parts of the world, but the Jews would come in, generally get a front person, an Arab, to buy land. So offer, I have money, probably British pounds, but I don't know. I have money. Who wants to sell their land? And so they'd have a front person. So there was no intimidation. There was nothing like that. They would buy up land, whether it be a building in Jerusalem or a bunch of countryside, and they would buy up land. And then, because they sort of go into, and I've talked about this and shown some of the photos of it, then especially in the countryside, they would actually prefab up a bunch of wooden fortifications, put them on trucks at night, drive across the desert or whatever, desert or countryside, maybe I should say, because it wasn't always desert, but drive across the countryside, show up at night, and immediately erect these wooden fortifications and start filling them with dirt, because they were just wooden frame stuff that you need to put dirt inside to stop bullets, because the wood wasn't going to stop bullets. And they would fill it with, try to get, sand, dirt, whatever, sandbags, get that filled up and get fortification, so that hopefully comes the dawn on the land that they bought. Now, again, they had somebody, maybe even a Christian, I don't know, but somebody going around buying the land, so that the person, an Arab, doesn't know that they're selling it to a Jew, but they knew they were selling their land. And they would come in and then occupy this land and then set up a kibbutz, however you pronounce it, there. So they weren't conquering the land, they were coming in and buying it. They weren't politically, because this was still under the British mandate, they weren't politically trying to take it. They were just simply trying to buy land, not using intimidation factors, not using any negative factors, just waving money around and somebody deciding to sell. And they were buying land. And then, starting in the 30s, the Arabs were rioting over this. The Jews were arming themselves up as covertly and as much as they could to protect themselves, and there were literally gunfights. But the Arabs started to riot. Now, the Jews would go into hiding and defend themselves as much as they could during these riots, but the British would have to put down these riots with gunfire. And so the Arabs were demanding that the British stop allowing Jews to come into Palestine. That's all they were demanding. They weren't, the Jews were just, hey, we want to move here. This is, Palestine mandate. We want to move here, and we'll buy land. We're not stealing anything. We're not stealing a goddamn thing. We're coming in and buying land. Well, World War II breaks out. That sort of stops the Jewish migration because World War II is going on and whatnot. And even the Arabs realize the British aren't going to put up with us rioting. They'll just come in and get machine guns. They do that in Iraq when Iraq revolt, and they'll just machine gun us down or bomb us down or something. So they sort of pacified during World War II. Well, post World War II, the Jews are trying to come in. Great movie called Exodus about some of the stuff. The Jews were coming in. The Arabs were demanding the British stop the Jews from coming in and buying land because the Jews were always able to find somebody to front for them to go around and wave money and buy land. So they were buying land, and the Arabs were now more and more attacking the Jews, and the Jews were defending themselves. Yeah, there were some that were, what is it? The Haganah were rather, or was it the Irgun? I think it was the Irgun. There were more terrorists. I forget which one of the two groups. Were a bit more terroristic in their attacks, including on the British. Took out one of the major hotels, Palestine Hotel or whatever, I forget. Did terrorist attacks against the British. So they weren't entirely self-defense, but they were mostly self-defense. And they were there, and they kept buying it up, and the Arabs were demanding to stop Jewish immigration into this territory and from buying the land. Well, eventually this gets to the point that Britain knows that it cannot. The British public opinion at home is that they don't want to see British soldiers dying for desert land anymore. People can talk about modern day, Americans and British dying in Iraq and Afghanistan and whatnot. But it was simpler than that. So this is, post World War II, and a lot of course, Britons had died in World War II and won and whatnot. So just give up and get out. And so that is when the war breaks out. And every single surrounding Arab nation, and plus others even further out, declare war on, or fighting the Jews. And once the Jews get recognition for an independent Judea, and immediately all the Arabs attack, and Israel holds out, and several good movies on that fighting as well. And they hold out and they survive. So I know there's a lot. Oh, and also know, because I know some of the people here, King David Hotel. Thank you, folk. Folk is well read. The King David Hotel. I'm very honest about history, and I'll criticize either the Jews or I'll criticize the Americans when they're wrong. I'm not trying to wave one flag and say it's all perfect, but I'm still a very big supporter of Zionism. The Arabs, nations around, call on the Arabs living inside of the territory that Israel controls. Now, there are one or two significant incidents that civilians got killed that looked like a massacre. I don't remember the details. There's a lot of dispute over the details. But as far as I can tell, it wasn't an overall policy from the top of the Israeli government. And I could be proven wrong with that. You want to prove me wrong, that's fine. But there were a few. But all of the Arab nations tell the Arabs to get out of Israel and the Israeli-controlled territory, to get out. And they do. They flee. They all believe, the other nations around them, and these people are, that give us a couple of years and we're going to come in and crush the Jews. They just believe that's going to happen. Now, another salient point of this is that as far as I can tell, all of these Arabs that have left Jewish territory, Jewish controlled territory, we're not at this moment talking about what is currently the West Bank or Gaza, because that was still Arab controlled at the time. All of the Arabs that leave are housed in camps. Okay, they're all housed in camps. They are not allowed to leave the camps in a residential, in a residing sort of manner. They might like go, if they're in a camp near Amman, they might go daily out to a job site or something like that. But they're not allowed to live outside of these camps. And these camps exist in Jordan. These camps exist out in Morocco and everywhere in between. Okay, they get spread everywhere else. They're kept in camps. They're not allowed at that time, or I can't speak to every case in every place, but for the most part, they were not allowed out. They were kept in camps. Not just not just like, well, oh, but I can rent an apartment over here, or I can buy an apartment over here. No, we won't let you out. They weren't allowed out. They weren't out, whether it was a camp in Iraq, a camp in Egypt, a camp in Tunisia. They weren't allowed out of the camps. They were forced to stay in the camps. And that is a key element. This part gets annexed by Egypt. This part gets annexed by Jordan. So the normal residents of this part of the West Bank get Jordanian citizenship. They're allowed to do whatever they want. The Arabs that fled from in here, that are living here, or fled from here and living here, they still have to stay in camps. They're not given Jordanian citizenship. Back, I believe it's in the 1970s, there is an attempt by the PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, to overthrow the Jordanian monarchy. It fails because at one point, I don't know if it's true to this day, but at one point, again, the 70s or the 80s, it is figured that there are more Palestinians in Jordan than there are Jordanians in Jordan. But again, the Palestinians are living in camps. They try to do a coup against the Kingdom of Jordan. Hope I'm getting all the details well enough correct. And it fails. The Jordanians come in and massacre people in large, PLO, Palestinian people, in large batches. I say they're going after the Palestinian militants, but trust me, there's lots and lots of civilians, and who's a militant, and and who's just a young man. And I'm not saying they were pulling women out in large numbers and just killing them or something, but they were in the way, and it was a massacre. They killed thousands, if not tens of thousands, of people in these massacres. The Jordanian army just went in and we've had enough of your radicalism, and just go down and shut things out. Now the Palestinians sort of take over large sections of Lebanon, but that's because Lebanon breaks out into a civil war, partially because the Palestinians are there. And so basically there are Arabs living, and there's still to this day large numbers of Arabs, Muslim Arabs, living in Israel that have Israeli citizenship. There are Egyptians living here. There are Jordanians living here because that's what they had their with their passports would say. This, I think it was 82. I don't know about Gaza, and I'm more fuzzy on Gaza, but I think it was like 82 or 86 or something like that. In 1982 or 86, but sometime in the 80s is finally when, because of peace deals that Jordan was working on with Israel, Jordan finally gave up any claim to the West Bank, and all of the residents there were no longer going to be Jordanian citizens. But the Palestinians that living here were still in camps. Now, if they wanted to, at that point, if they wanted to return to, because they couldn't, because by that point, Israel had taken the West Bank. But so the Palestinian problem was not caused by Israel. Israel did not mass eject the Arab Muslim population. I'm not saying that they were entirely unhappy to see them leave, but they did not mass eject the population. It was, I believe, mostly Gamal Nasser, but also Hussein of Jordan and probably everybody else around. I think it's Hussein. I don't know his current father. I forget some of these names. I used to know them all pretty well. That demanded that or requested that the Arabs leave Israeli controlled territory. And ever since that time, ever since 1947 or whatever, these people have been kept in camps and have not been allowed to integrate into a lot of their local country. Now, I don't know. Again, that's for sure. Especially, Libya has collapsed, and I don't really know long term what happened. I do know that they did close down camps that Palestinians were living in places like Algiers and Tunisia, and sent them back east. But I don't know every last detail in every last country. But largely, the Palestinian problem is caused by the Arabs, not by the Arab states around them, not by Israel. Not saying everything, like I did say that there were a few massacres, not saying everything that Israel has ever done is perfect or the best solutions, but they were doing it right and trying to do it right. It is the the Palestinian people are being used still to this day as a tool by Arab interests to attack Israel and to attack the West, because Israel is not the threat. They don't trust me. They don't fucking care about this little strip of land. The people living in Cairo, the people living in Baghdad, people living in Riyadh, wherever you want to care to name, they don't fucking care about this little bit of land. Yeah, I know the Temple Mount / Al-Aqsa Mosque is in Jerusalem. Yeah, okay, but they really don't care. What they care about is Western penetration into what they see as Arab territory, and that is what's going on. So we are just seeing it. And I'll tell you what I think is going to happen, and you can check me up on this in a little while. The Jews, or the Israelis, I should say at this point, drew a little line here and told all the people north of here to evacuate, all the civilians to evacuate. Why did they do that? Well, because they're planning on invading here. Yeah, because they want the and Hamas, to my understanding, has been putting roadblocks and attempting to keep people from evacuating. I don't know if they've been going so far as to shoot people or anything like that. I just don't know. But because they want to use them as human shields. Now, why do they draw the line, and why do they tell people to go south? Because you can build a rocket and launch it from here to other places. You don't controlling the north bit is nice, but it's not important. What I think they want to do is get the greater bulk of the civilians out of the north here to minimize casualties, and then they want to sweep down from the north to their line and clear it out. All people that are north of there, they want to gain custody of and see who they are. Oh, this is a grandma. She's in a wheelchair. Okay, fine. Oh, this is a young 20-something guy that oh, he's on our list because we can see he's been photographed. He's Hamas. We want to put him in a Hamas camp, for them. Sort out the people that are north of this line, but clear it all out of Hamas. That's what I think they want to do. And so everybody in the north half or whatever, north section, go through every single last person that's alive, and try to get all arms caches and whatnot, and then and come down to the line of control, and again sweep down. And then what I think they're going to do is their plan. I don't know. Nobody. I've not talked to any. I know. I only know that I know of one guy who lives in Israel, uh, but I haven't talked to him in 5 years or something. So I hope he's all right. But um, so I don't know a lot of. So not like there's any inside information that I've got. What I think they're going to do is then tell all the people that went down here, all the civilians, come north. But we're going to check you through. Do go through all these people, sort them out. Known terrorists if they stupid enough to try to come through. 20 something, 30 something men particularly. Well, we'll segregate them out before we go through them. Try to do biometric sweep with everybody else. Get photograph them, and because Israel has some really high tech gear. In their face, so they get the details of eye recognition, the blood vessels in your eyes, get fingerprint stuff, get all the people and sort them through north. And then and hopefully get all of the civilians out, and then sweep through to the south. And that way they're hoping to get most all of the Hamas people, if they're quote unquote civilians. And there are civilian people, shall we say, that are, because Hamas is a large organization. It's often talked about, they feed the poor and they do all these other sort of outreach stuff. So not necessarily everybody is an active terrorist gun shooter in Hamas. But the organization at its core is a terrorist organization, whatever. If you're a gangster who also runs a hospital, doesn't mean that you're a good guy. It means you're a gangster who runs a hospital. If you're a terrorist who runs a hospital, well, you're a terrorist still. But sort through sort out who are the Hamas people and get them away from the rest of the population, control them. And I don't know what their long term, but whether they're going to, because they used to occupy Gaza, people. They used to occupy, and there was a lot of sort of skirmish fightings. They would try to smuggle in weapons, and the Gaza people, or they would throw rocks at the patrolling Israeli units, and all the checkpoints were controlled by Israelis, and there were Israeli military forces occupying Gaza. I think it was the Oslo Accords or one of them that got them to pull out, with the promise of Egypt controlling the south and not letting weapons come in there. Look how well that's worked out. And of course, Israel working to intercept ships that are coming in and search them for weapons. Look how well that's turned out. I mean, they got lots of weapons somehow, so it hasn't been that effective. And I don't know whether it's Egyptian policy or whether it's just the corrupt state of Israel, that whoever you put in charge just gets bribed down here. Or threatened. We know where your family lives. We'll kill you if you notice that there's AKs in the back of this truck or something like that. I don't know, because it could just be threatened. So I think that's what they're going to try to do, is get the civilians out of one half, fight their way in, control the territory, and then try to get the civilians back to that other half, but filtered through. My estimation. Okay. There's about the same number of Arabs inside Israel than Jews, but they split into political factions. I don't care. Many years ago, the first tour I took, package tour of Europe, that was actually run by a British company. So, but it was a tour of Europe, not of Britain. So there were only about half of the people on the tour were Americans. There was like a couple from India. There was another older couple from Egypt. But there was a couple a bit older than I was, but, late 20s, maybe early 30s women. I talked to them a little bit. They were teachers in Israel, and this was before the Intifada, the uprisings going on, that were Arabs, and Muslim Arab women. And I asked them, they said, oh, absolutely. It's, I asked them, I asked them about, teaching. Oh, absolutely. We're second-class citizens, and absolutely we are, not given the same, by the government, the same budgets per student and whatnot. Absolutely. But they described themselves as Israelis. Okay, now this again before the uprisings, before whatever. These were young women that did not dress in an Arabic fashion. Now they didn't show like lots of skin or anything like that, but they were young, late 20s, early 30s, two women traveling alone, with no male chaperones through Europe. They were fairly westernized, if you will. And they spoke English. All the people on the tour spoke English. There was also like a few people from Brazil and there are a bunch of Australians on the tour. So it was a very sort of eclectic group going around there. But so I talked to some of these different people, and like the couple from Egypt, they were a little disappointed in the tour because it was always going to old places, like the Colosseum in Rome and whatnot, and where they wanted to see the new modern stuff of like airports and other new modern buildings because they had seen enough old stuff in Egypt. So different sort of aspects of wanting to see Europe. And so they described themselves as Israelis, not as Palestinians. I asked them that specifically. And, this was an American early 20-somethings, guy traveling around Europe. So I don't think that they thought, threat from, some sort of informant or something. And no, they clearly described themselves as Israelis, not as Palestinians or whatever else. So there's a lot of Arabs that look outside of Israel and go, yeah, being a second-class citizen here is a lot better than being a first-class citizen there, wherever there would be. So there's a lot that go, yeah, this ain't so bad, and the world isn't. Nobody, well, I don't know, maybe now with what's going on in Israel, a lot of people would watch. But I guess we devolved into a modern talk on things, so I guess we'll end that here. I hope it was informative as well as entertaining. And if you want to dispute, I'm sure I got some details wrong and you want to correct those below, that's fine. If you want to dispute some of my overall narrative, go ahead. Just please post some sort of facts or whatever to dispute them. But like I say, I am a big Zionist. I support Israel's right to exist. Now, that doesn't mean being a big Zionist doesn't mean that endless amounts of American budget should be, poured into Israel forever. I'm starting to think that Israel should be able to stand on its own by now without sending any more, monetary aid. I mean, I'll sell them weapons and maybe a bit higher tech than I would sell to other countries. Not as necessarily as high tech as to some of the NATO nations, but I'd sell them reasonably high tech weapons. But I'm sort of getting the opinion of stopping the aid spigot, free money or free whatever, to Israel. I think they should be able to stand on their own by now. Some point they've got to. They can't forever. Now, I'm not saying that they, if somebody's going to offer them money, they shouldn't take it. But I'm just saying I don't know that we should keep sending them money. But that doesn't change my general personal support for Israel. So, yeah. Thanks, everyone. See you next time for more, yes, even more actual Hearts of Iron playing.